So let's look for employers. What are some things that employers can do to help protect their email tenant and make sure that Microsoft is locked down as much as possible? So I'm going to say this, like, ensure that MFA is enabled on all the email accounts. This has been the floor for at least half a decade, if not more. Every user should have multi-factor authentication enabled on their Office 365 account. If they don't, you're just opening yourself up to compromise, because the criminals are looking to steal session tokens and things like that so that they can bypass MFA. But if you don't have MFA at all they need is an email address and a password, and then they can get access and compromise that account easily. You also want to have regular staff training on what not to click, but also on things like how to verify email validity. A lot of the teeth of what we've seen for these attacks, especially with wire transfers and things like that, would have stopped if somebody would have just picked up the phone and called the person that sent it, or did a text message or something like that, some other method of communication that they know exists outside of the email that came in. And then the users need to how to report suspicious activity. So things like if something pops up for credentials, don't enter them and let your IT team know that, hey, this happened. Or be aware of links or attachments that didn't work. So you click on something, maybe somebody shares a Dropbox file with you. You open it up and it doesn't do anything. Like I said, that doesn't mean it didn't do anything. It just didn't do what you expected. So notify your IT team about those sorts of things. External email warnings. So this will be like, caution, this came from an external email address. Those are on there so that if somebody sends an email that says it comes from one of my coworkers, and I see that external email warning on there, then I have pretty high confidence to know that it didn't come from them. And I should be very suspicious of that. You want that set up on your company. So if your CEO sends you an email, or your controller or anything like that sends you an email, and it has that external email warning tag on, then you've had the user training to say, okay, I need to be very suspicious of this and contact that person in another method just to make sure that it was legitimate or not. Register doppelganger domains or typo squatting domains. We have a article about this, but those are domains like 4bls.com, looks the same as 4bis.com in the Outlook font. A capital I and a lowercase l are identical. So we've registered 4bls.com so people can't use it against us. That's something that we can run an audit on your network, on your domains, and get those types of things and do that for you, so you could register those and have that little bit of insurance that those can't be used against you. And then also more advanced spam filters. So we have advanced spam filters that we have access to and we can use. They have stopped a lot of things coming through, but they don't stop everything. But they also create a lot of false positives. So that's a use case scenario that needs to be worked out with your employees of what's acceptable. Marketing emails get trapped a lot. Sometimes other important emails can be trapped. So it takes user training of where to look for the spam emails, knowing some more are going to get picked up by that, but it's going to let your company be at less risk for a business email compromise or a full takeover. Policies and procedures are absolutely huge and critical. So what you want to do is you want to have policies on wire transfers. So if a wire transfer comes through, or a request for a wire transfer comes through, contact that person over the phone and just verify that information before you actually do the transfer. We've seen cases of $300,000, $400,000 being transferred out in multiple instances out to a hacker because they put themselves in the middle of a wire transfer. Had the person just picked up the phone and called the person that they know that sent the wiring instructions, they could have verified that information and not just relied on what was the email. That's going to take a procedure and a policy from your company to say, this is our policy on that. We've seen fraudulent orders come through where somebody orders $50,000 of product and has it drop shipped to a location that's fraudulent. If somebody would have just called and said, hey, thank you for that order, and the customer could have been like, hey, I didn't put in that order, that could have stopped that sort of thing from happening. And you want to maybe say, okay, what's the threshold that we want to do a secondary verification of an unusual type of order comes through, drop ship to a weird location, all those sorts of things. Those are policies and trainings that need to happen. Changes to payment methods are huge. If you get an email that says, hey, we changed our payment gateway, verify that in some other method before you just go ahead and accept that that's the truth. A lot of hackers will do that, and they will get in the middle of what would be an invoice payment, and then all of a sudden you find out a month or two later that you didn't pay for what you thought you paid for, and you actually paid a criminal. The other thing that we want to look at too is data policies. So what's allowed to be stored in email. And I'm going to say this down here on the be flexible part. What was secure in the past may not be in the future, and that is exactly email. So you've put things in email that was a little bit, maybe you thought was more locked down, but now the criminals know that. And now that data stored in there, even if you just sent it to yourself or saved it into a contact card, that's literally one click away from a criminal being able to access. And we've seen out of email, business email compromise, people had access to passwords, social security numbers, bank accounts, and some cases money was stolen. In other cases, that end user had to go change every close and reopen new bank accounts based on all the stuff that was in there. So if it doesn't need to be an email, run searches and get rid of that data if it doesn't need to be there anymore. And then, like I said, be flexible. Things change and you need to have your policies set up to be adaptable to the new changes that happen in the industry and keep your ear to the ground about those. Harden Microsoft 365. So this is a big one. Turn on audit logging. Nothing can happen without audit logging turned on in 365. It's not by default. It's 2 button clicks and you really want it on. We can't look for any indicators of compromise, unusual logins, any of those sorts of things with audit logging turned off. And I still to this day run across companies that we go and audit that this isn't on. And this has been the floor for years. It's just a 2 button clicks, turn it on, it's free. You want to have separate accounts for your administrator rather than your daily driver account. So if you are Bob Smith, you have Bob Smith at text.com, you want to have like a Bob admin at text.com that doesn't have any email address associated with that. There's no email. So if somebody gets access to the main Bob Smith account, they can't ruin that whole tenant and get access to it. If they're an admin and they get access to that, they can look at all the email for the whole tenant. They can change rules for everybody. They can do a whole bunch of damage in that. Other things we're talking about MDR, managed detection response, a little bit further, but you want to have some third-party software that's looking at it, looking for indicators of compromise. Some things to consider are conditional access policies. So that's limiting connections outside the United States. Maybe you can only connect in from the US, then that might create a hardship on your users, or you might not be able to do so because of how you might be a global company or things like that. So there's considerations to be made. If you are a US-based company, then people traveling would need to let you know so that you can allow them to connect from, say, the United Kingdom if they're traveling over there on vacation for a certain amount of time. It's not perfect because the threat actors know this. So they will use a stolen credit card and buy an Azure server in the United States to hack from. But in 2 of the instances that I've seen recently of third-party companies that have done this, that have had business email compromise, they had logins from Russia and Nigeria and all kinds of stuff like that would have been limited if they would have had this turned on. Reduce the timeout of web sessions. So if you limit that inactive timeout to an hour, if somebody does steal that session token and they're not using it constantly, it could time out on them and they wouldn't have access anymore. And then also consider something like zero trust network access. So that is, you get access through something like a SASE application that they have to authenticate to before they can get to Microsoft 365. That really takes the teeth out of a lot of these business email compromise because they would have to get access to your ZTNA network before they could even then get access to it. But it does cause some potential hardships for your users. They can't get to their email unless it's on a corporate-owned device and some things like that. Defender for Office 365. So that's things called, like, it used to be called Advanced Threat Protection, ATP. That's one of the things it does is safe links and safe attachments. So it sandboxes a lot of these things and tries to find out how bad they are before it sends them through. It's a critical type of thing to have, but it doesn't stop everything. So like we said all the time, cybersecurity is a process and a mindset of a whole bunch of stuff. And so you want to have different things looking at different things. And then backing everything up. What if the threat actor deletes some email? Well, you want to be able to pull that from a backup so you can get it back. MDR is a big one. So this is a third-party software that's looking at Microsoft 365 that's looking for indicators of compromise. Audit logging has to be turned on for this to work, so that's number one. But we know that we can't 100% stop bad email. So what happens after a user clicks? Well, we want to be looking for those IOCs. So we want to be looking for impossible logins and logins from unapproved locations and forwarding rules and all those sorts of things. And when we get those indicators through that they've happened to clients of ours, generally it's before the end user even knew that they had an issue. And so we were able to sign out of all sessions and change passwords and reset up MFA before the threat actors were actually able to do anything with that compromise that happened. And so it's really critical to have something that's looking at this that's not just your end users to know, because the hackers are good at this and they know how to hide from the end users from the actual email user. And it's more difficult to hide from the eyes that are looking at everything in the back than it is from the end users themselves. So takeaways, as always, modern cybersecurity approach. Cyber training is essential. You want to have multiple things. You want to let the end users know what to look for and how to stop it, but also how to report unusual activity. MDR is critical. You want to have those sorts of things that are looking at it to get an idea of what's going on. MFA is great, but it's not everything. The criminals have figured out how to bypass it, but you want to make it at least hard on them. So don't make it so that if you don't have MFA, then they can just get access to the account if they just have a stolen password. Doppelganger domain audit, all those sorts of things. We can help with that. Get in contact with us and we can run that domain. You can purchase those domains that try to prevent them from being used against you or the people you deal with. And then you need to look for IOCs. This can't always be prevented, so you have to do the detect, respond, and recover part of it. Schedule a meeting with us. This is complicated. It's hard. We're seeing a lot of places that we work with are not protecting their Office 365 nearly enough. As far as the new clients that come and talk to us, potential new clients that come and talk to us, there's a lot of companies in this city that just are not locked down enough, or they're not looking for the right things. And it takes an entire approach and a mindset in order to get this. Get with us. We can help secure your company. We can really help you reduce that risk. And if something does happen, really limit that blast radius down so we can get things prevented before it gets to the point where you lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. As always, this will get posted on our YouTube page. Like us, subscribe there. Come to our website, look for our blog, like us on all these spots, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those sorts of pieces. And you'll reach out to us. We're here to educate you and we're here to help the community. And a huge goal, like I said, personally to me, is to secure as many Cincinnati businesses as possible. I need your help to do so, though. I need you to reach out to us and make sure you're getting the information you need, and we can make that happen. Once again, I thank you for joining me, and we went a little long today, but I appreciate you being here. Thanks, and we will see you soon.